Okay, Mr. Chair, the meeting's yours.
Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to Interstate Commission for EMS Personnel Practice. This is our regularly scheduled Executive Committee meeting. It is Wednesday, October 8th, 2025. And with that, I will go to Secretary House for the roll call.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Chairman Kinney, present. I'll speak for you. You're present. Vice Chair Denny.
Present.
Secretary House is present. Treasurer Vandeloon.
Present.
Member at Large Kaler.
Present.
And immediate past Chair Schmieder.
Yeah.
You have got everyone, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. The Executive Committee, thank you to all the commissioners on and members of the state offices and general public. We appreciate everyone being on. The Executive Director does have the authority to mute should there be noise distractions. If you wish to make a comment at any time, you can use the raise hand feature, and our Executive Director will let me know that someone wishes to comment or has a question at that time. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. We have a published agenda. Does anyone have any items to bring before the commission that is not on the published agenda?
No hands, sir.
Okay, not seeing any, then we'll move on to the next item of business, and that's going to be our September 2025 meeting summary that was sent out. Open to any corrections, clarifications, or a motion to authorize that as our summary and to be posted.
As Commissioner House, I would move that we accept it.
Thank you, Commissioner House. Is there a second?
Commissioner Denny, I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Denny. You have a motion and a second. Any further comments or discussion on the meeting summary as presented? With that, is there anyone on the Executive Committee that is opposed to adopting the meeting summary? Okay, we will go ahead and show that as approved and authorize our Executive Director to post that on the website. And we're up to the reports, and the first one is the Treasurer's Report. Commissioner Vandeloon.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. For the Treasurer's Report this month is pretty minimal. We had a previous balance of $104,338.90, one debit of $6,425, with a pending balance of $97,913.90 with no credits this month. Any questions?
Questions for our treasurer? Okay, we will go ahead and accept that report subject to audit. Moving on to the chairperson's report. Things are going well. I'm going to leave most of it for Donnie. We still have our regular check-ins and just a lot of momentum. And I think we can credit our executive director. He's doing a lot of presentations. He's joining a lot of meetings, and there's a lot of buzz about the compact. I was excited. He sent out notice, and there are videos that are available that are good resource tools. I'd recommend that for, frankly, anyone in your state, but particularly for state office staff, to make sure that they understand how the compact works. And I know he would say it, so I will as well. If any of the state offices want educational sessions, he can do that virtually. And we've been fortunate, he's been able to do several in person, including Indiana. It's a great resource. I would encourage you to consider that. That is all I have for the chair's report. So we will move on to rules and bylaws. Commissioner Schmieder.
Good afternoon, commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity. Hopefully you had a chance to review, and I know Donnie's going to do a quick summary of what the changes that we're proposing. Donnie, I didn't go look. Have we gotten any comments at all online to the new rules?
We have one public comment that essentially says, looks like a good rule.
I like the answer. So, thank you, Donnie. So, you wanted to just give us a quick thumbnail? Hopefully, everybody got a chance to read it, and then we'll try to answer any questions. And then, Donnie, I don't think we set up a date yet, but we're going to set up a date to do this for all the commissioners before the November vote.
Yes, sir. In fact, that's one of the questions I have during my my report. I'm going to propose a couple of dates, and we'll get those out. So
Great.
what I'll do is I'm just going to scroll through on the screen real quick and provide an educational summary of the intent and what we did, and then I'll cover this in a lot more detail in the education session. We updated a few definitions, and I will note that the version I'm presenting has went through the Rules Committee. It's been reviewed by council. And so we carefully updated a few definitions, including that of conviction requiring a review, felony. And while we recognize that felony has a general meaning, we wanted to make sure that we captured a consistent meaning for the purposes of the compact. We went out and defined moral turpitude. And we leaned into the experiences of many of the other compacts as well to try to create some uniformity and legal uniformity across some of the healthcare compacts. One of the biggest things that we've added in this rulemaking, and I'll address it first in the definition, is the concept of a provisional privilege to practice. And this is really the core of what this rule package does. Is it recognizes and carefully balances state sovereignty with uniformity, and it recognizes that the EMS compact grants a privilege to practice to individuals that meet requirements established by the compact. However, when it comes to state sovereignty, your individual state, or 50 individual states and 6 territories in a district, might have a different view of how you want to interpret things like administrative decisions has been taken against the license, criminal convictions, moral turpitude areas. And so we recognize that getting all 50 states to actually absolutely agree on a single definition may be challenging. So we want to respect state sovereignty. At the same time, we want to honor the privilege to practice across multiple states. So we've introduced this concept of a provisional privilege to practice. We firmly believe that this is legally solid. And what this would do is if you have an individual that your state has had to deliberate over based on criminal, administrative, moral turpitude issues, etc., then rather than granting a full privilege to practice that would be honored in all states, we would honor state sovereignty and allow other states to make an informed decision on that privilege to practice. And we're calling that a provisional privilege to practice. We're not revoking it. We're not restricting it. It's a provisional. And then in the rulemaking outline, we outline the process for that individual to present their documents to the remote state that then can make an informed decision about care. That's how I would summarize the following pages. Let me scroll down to them again real quick. So because of that, in 4.2, we did a simple title change. Before we had a restoration of privilege to practice. Now it's a restoration or a recognition of that privilege to practice in the process for that. Then we outline the concept of what's a qualified license for a privilege to practice. And this would be someone who essentially meets all the requirements with no gray area as a qualified clinician for the privilege to practice. And then we outline what is a provisional. And a provisional is someone who is otherwise qualified, but has one or more areas that would require or in best practice would allow a state to make a determination. And we outline what that is. And then finally, we outline what a non-qualified license is. And of this, I want to note that there's a few things that could be non-qualifying. And one is if a license is issued by a member state that's not in compliance with the compact. We recognize that as the compact continues to mature and we continue to add states and we continue to add people and it's integrated into work and actual practice more, if a state falls out of compliance, for instance, a state is not meeting the requirements of the law, then this clause would provide an opportunity for the commission to determine that those licenses are no longer qualified. And then that would trigger a process in the further section down of the rules that would allow for that state to be properly notified. We'd provide technical assistance, and ultimately the commission would have to determine if the state's non-compliance would disqualify the state from the compact altogether. But this is an intermediary step that the commission could deem those licenses are not qualified. And then on down, we talk about the conditions of practice in a remote state. And this was based on stakeholder feedback. And we just added some clarification to this, that an individual is referring to an individual clinician, not an agency. Again, that was feedback from our stakeholders that we had on that. If I go on to the bottom of the rulemaking, let me scroll down to it here. So this is under the compliance that I mentioned earlier. So we outline a process here for compliance of states, and what happens if the commission suspends the membership of a state, and it essentially will require that state to also notify individuals that, unfortunately, your privilege of practice is no longer valid because the state's no longer in compliance. And that's the summary of how I would summarize that. So that is the rulemaking package. Again, we're going to schedule a time to go through these line by line. At that point, I'll answer any questions. We're going to dive into it. And then we have the official hearing of this that will be scheduled at our November 5th meeting. And with that, both committee chair and commission chair, I would propose Thursday, October 16th, at some point, except between 12 and 2 Mountain Time, that we schedule this meeting. So that's when I would like to schedule the education session.
Thank you, Donnie, for that overview, and great work to the committee and to council, Christy and Doug, for all your help with this. There was a lot of discussion to this, and I think you'll see that we've answered a lot of questions and helped start putting a stronger foundation around the compact. So let me just stop there and ask if there's any immediate questions that you would like to raise at this time.
I have a quick question, and Joe, about when we were talking about when states are not when states are found to be not being within compliance, and with the licensed clinicians and their privilege of practice, talked about how, or I know you talked about how the commission would make the determination of whether or not those folks were eligible. I guess who from the commission would be making that decision?
Yeah, the rules outline that the executive committee first is the one that adjudicates non-compliance. And then there's a multi-step process that involves me reaching out to the commissioner. And then in the absence of a response, then the rules direct me to reach out to the governor. Then we do a plan of correction. And through that process, ultimately, the commission as a whole would take a final action on adjudication of compliance.
Sorry, talk more about on the licensee side. So if I think there's a section that you're talking about making a determination if licensees were eligible if the state is out of compliance.
That would be part of that escalation process.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not a light taken decision, but that would be taken in concert with plan of correction, notification. But if the commission determined that a state was non-compliant to an extent that was not tolerable, and I should probably mention that because we are working through some compliance issues that have been deemed tolerable. But then that would be part of that escalation process that would happen.
Okay. Thank you.
Some other questions? That was a great question. Thank you for asking that. I will say that, we witnessed over the last a month, and obviously I'm not going to say who, but we had a struggling with one of the states that the state director had left and their commissioner had left, and we worked through making contacts with the state, and we now have that state back and fully a commissioner named and moving forward. So the system works, and that was just a minor compared to some other issues. But I think the whole foundation here is that, we all take this very serious, and especially the people that we serve. And we just need to get everybody on board and marching in the same direction. And we need to get some of these other issues inputting the data or putting the right information into the database and all that kind of stuff. And we just need to continue addressing that and get it stronger, because I think we'll all agree that the database is the strength of the compact. I know I'm in there every week looking as people move around constantly. It's such an easy way to find information out pretty quickly. So I appreciate everyone's effort on this. From the bylaws committee, thank you so much. And then Donnie, you said on the 16th, so I'll take a look at my calendar while we're meeting here. Not that I'm not paying attention. I will be paying attention. But was it 10 to 2 Mountain Time, you said?
12 to 2 Mountain Time
12.
is the only time I can't, because I'm doing another presentation about the compact.
What's more important to you, bro? No, I'm just kidding. With that, I don't have anything else unless somebody else has some questions. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you both. And sometimes what I've done in the past on the rules, I have asked the exec committee to kind of endorse it, even though it's not a step in the process. On this one, I'm probably not going to, because we just had this summary and I don't think you've had a copy. But definitely we're open to any feedback. But I know Commissioner Schweter's done a ton of work. Of course, Donnie's done a ton of work. And then Doug and Christy have been instrumental in kind of reviewing this process. And then I should say the bylaws committee itself spent quite a bit of time on this. So I feel very confident that this is a step in the right direction. I look forward to presenting it to the full commission. Okay, the next item that we have, criminal conviction. Any update from that? Commissioner Jones.
Yes, good afternoon. We met briefly a couple weeks ago. We had just received the bulk of the data from the survey. We had 23 out of 25 states respond to the survey. So the committee decided we're going to take the time between our meetings to look over that and digest that. And Donnie was going to work up a synopsis for us. And then our next meeting, we're going to start putting together some proposed guidelines.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. And thank you to everyone that did commit to, did complete a survey. It was very interesting information. It'll probably take a little bit of time to digest, but it's very positive. Stakeholder Advisory Committee, Commissioner Kaler.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any updates. I don't think we've met since our last executive committee meeting, unless there's anything the executive director would like to add.
No, we have a meeting scheduled, and we'll have a good report out for our November commission meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we're up to Donnie's report, executive directors.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to scroll down. I've got a number of things to reference here. So first and foremost is we have Commissioner Lewis Robinson on the line. Commissioner Robinson, are you able to turn on your camera, or are you in a spot to do that? We'll see if he is. So Commissioner Robinson has been appointed by the State Health Commissioner, Keith Reed, for the state of Oklahoma. Commissioner Robinson is our newest and latest commissioner for the state of Oklahoma. He has been exceptionally responsive and plugged in, and we're looking forward to doing a orientation session with him and getting him, he's fully seated, but getting his access to our data systems and getting his staff up to speed. So Mr. Robinson, I know that you're going to be listening. I don't know if you're able to unmute and if you'd like to say any words of welcome. And if so, we'll come back to you, sir. So, but welcome, glad that you are here and glad that you're online. Next is we issued a press release congratulating the state of Tennessee. Tennessee completed their connection and onboarding process to the National EMS Coordinated Database. And so we issued a status with that. That added over 20,000 additional EMS personnel to the coordinated database and immediately activated their privilege to practice as deemed appropriate by their license status. And so we appreciate the work of Tennessee and really everything that went into that to make sure that that happened. So we're happy for Tennessee to be in compliance with that now. The next thing I would like to propose to the executive committee is a consideration of a resolution. And what I would ask is for the EC to consider advancing this to the commission for consideration at our November meeting. The week of November 10th is National Collegiate EMS Week. This is 29 years, I believe, of recognizing National Collegiate EMS. And many of you probably have heard me say this before, but I am grateful for my time of being a collegiate university-based EMS provider. And if you're ever looking for a real encouraging conference to go to, it's the Collegiate EMS Conference. And I would frankly say it's one of the most inspiring conferences you can attend. 2,000 plus university college students who are EMTs and paramedics come together. The energy is something that will rejuvenate a tired soul. I would tell you that right away. But with that, here's a proposed resolution. And Mr. Chair, I would request the executive committee to consider advancing this for consideration, just as a way of us recognizing the next generation of EMS providers and acknowledging that while many of them stay in EMS, a lot of them actually move into other careers that, due to their love for EMS, that they help advance our profession from tangent or outside EMS as a whole, but they do some incredible things. And then I have more to go, Mr. Chair, but I'll take a break at this point for this action.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for pushing the agenda item. So we have a potential resolution out there coming from Donnie. Is there any discussion from the exec committee, or does anyone suggest we do take an action like refer it to the full commission?
This is Joe House. I'd make a motion that we push it forward to the full commission for adoption with our endorsement.
Thank you, Commissioner House. Is there a second?
Mr. Kaler, I will second that.
Mr. Kaler with the second. Thank you. Any further discussion on this? Anyone opposed to doing this? Okay, you may proceed, and I'll turn it back to you, Donnie.
Thank you, sir. Next is I have a draft letter. This letter has been circulated in the board packet, and this is a letter to Center for Medicare Medicaid Innovation. Brief background on this letter is there's a number of stakeholder groups that are putting forth similar letters asking for the evaluation of treatment in place and the Comprehensive Alternative Response for Emergencies, the CARE Act, and also looking at the Medicare Medicaid schedule. And we recognize that many of the stakeholder groups are working on this. We applaud that. As a governmental body, after reviewing multiple requests for the commission to evaluate this, my recommendation is that we approach this from our governmental body stance and send a letter to the administrator simply addressing our support and background and the importance of some of these initiatives through our perspective, our government perspective. So I've got a draft letter here. There is some timeliness to this that needs to be considered. And if we're going to send the letter, it probably needs to be sent prior to our full commission meeting. So my request action on this is for consideration, action by the executive committee, or if you want to refer it back to the chair and back to myself for revisions or edits. But Mr. Chair, here is a draft letter, government to government, on these issues.
Okay, thank you. So we have proposal here on the letter, comments, discussion, or motions from the exec committee.
So, Mr. Chair, this Commissioner House, and Donnie, maybe you can help here. I'm struggling a little bit with the nexus to the compact on this because this has pretty much everything to do with EMS agencies, but very little to do with the personnel side of it. And so I think I'd be more supportive of a draft letter that shows the impact of the personnel aspect of it and how this might help on that component. But it does, I mean, Tip and Tab and ET3 are all pretty much agency centric things, which are not necessarily within our nexus on the compact. So
yeah, I'm happy. No, I'm happy to take that. Give me 1 second here to bring up, and that is a, let me see, I just want to bring up this. No, that's a vital point, and it's something I wrestled with. And what I considered in drafting the letter was under the section 1 of the compact, where the compact legislation talks about increasing public access to EMS personnel. And that is really what I was looking at, is these issues, while they're agencies issues, they directly impact the ability to have personnel. But I'm happy to take edits to refine it to be a little bit more explicit on the personnel side and access to EMS. Happy to do that. Or maybe it's not in our wheelhouse. That's also possible.
And I don't disagree with supporting it by any stretch of the imagination. I think this is our opportunity to make that tight nexus to the personnel side of it, and less on the agency side.
Other thoughts, comments, or response to that discussion, since we haven't really resolved it?
I know you can't see me, Craig. Let me put my hand up. There we go.
There you go. I am now. I'm on. I do see.
Oh, there you are. I didn't see you right in the corner. I wonder, Donnie, go down to the last sentence, because you tie it in the last sentence how it works with our clinicians. That last little paragraph right there.
And I'm happy to refine it, circulate it, and make that more clear. Whatever the group would like, I'm happy to make those revisions.
Thoughts? Do we want, that might be a suggestion to take kind of the question and maybe revise a little and then send it to the exec committee as an email. And then I can authorize if we get to a final version that we're comfortable with.
Joe, do you think it needs more of a link than just that last sentence?
Yeah, I mean, for me, yes, but
Yeah. And it's okay.
yeah.
Any objection from the exec committee to handle it that way, to have Donnie revise it and then resend it to all of us? And then if we get a consensus version, then I can just authorize him as chairperson to send it out.
I think that sounds like a great plan. Correct.
Okay, we will proceed in that manner. Thank you. Thank you, Donnie, for bringing up. Thank you for the good questions, Commissioner House.
Absolutely. I'll work with you, sir, and we'll get that out for review. Next is a letter just for awareness and on the record. So on September 24th, transmitted a letter to the Admiral Vi, who is the responsible for the Bureau of Medicine and Surgery for the Navy. It was announced earlier that the Navy is now requiring EMT certification for corpsmen. And this has been part of a multi-year, I think, approach, recognizing that there are many individuals who separate out from military service who do something in the military that kind of looks like EMS or gets very close to EMS. But when they finish their military service without a valid national registry or state license, they find transitioning very, very difficult. So this is just a letter that was applauding the Navy for taking this, policy stance to ensure that corpsmen, or at least majority of corpsmen, would have national registry certification, and that would ease their ability to work in civilian service. So I reviewed this with the chair, and we transmitted this letter about a week ago. And then the other things I just want to give brief updates on is I was supposed to be in DC this week, and I had 6 meetings set up with our federal partners, and also a couple members of Congress that had questions about the compact. Because of the government shutdown, that got changed at the very last minute on Friday. And then I was able to do a couple of those meetings remote for those who still are around, and in the process of rescheduling the others as the government opens up eventually, I believe. We hope. So that's the update from that, but very positive. I will note that we are continuing to work with our federal partners on updates to the coordinated database and some technology there. That's moving very, very, very positively. I've had a surge of questions about the compact from states and from legislators, and providing technical assistance. That in the past week, that's included inquiries from the state of Maryland. It was presented during one of their joint committees earlier this week. We've had questions from New Mexico, questions from Ohio, questions from Minnesota, Washington State, Oregon, and I believe I'm missing a bunch in the middle. So it's been a very, very busy time answering those questions, and we've provided model legislation out to 13 states now in the past 2 months. So we'll see what happens with that. I will be in Mississippi this weekend and doing a presentation on the compact, and have a number of compact presentations over the next 6 weeks. So with that, I'm happy to stand for any questions. I feel like I'm probably missing some things. Oh, the videos. Last thing, this past week, published 3 new videos that are out there. 2 were internally created, 1 was external. And that was sent out through an email link. I was invited to be a guest on the Meet Your Regulator podcast. And so that went out, and I had a chance to talk on that podcast, a video interview about the compact. Earlier this week, I filmed a video short talking about EMS agency affiliation and the requirements of that, and sent that out. That remains the most common question my office gets. And then also put out a little over a 1 hour video session. It's the EMS Compact 101. And that is a full recording of what I typically do in person. And that is now out available on YouTube. So 3 new video resources are available for our communities out there. With that, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to stand for any questions or turn it back over.
Any questions for our director?
Donnie, not so much a question, but just a remark, I guess, to make with the talking about the letter to the BUMED. Thank you so much for saying that. I am actually one of those clinicians that are talking about that would have definitely benefited from something like this. One of the things I found just baffling about my time as a corpsman during our corpsman A school, I actually have my my book right here. We had our EMT Brady book. It was actually part of our course, and it baffled me that it was having to go through all the hoops to jump through with National Registry and stuff once we got out. It was definitely would have helped me out, and probably could have kickstarted my career a little bit quicker too. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, and thank you for your service.
Agreed. Okay, thank you, Donnie. Appreciate all the hard work on all the items. Thank you for keeping the commission moving forward. New business, Donnie.
Oh, we have the coordinated database report, sir.
Oh, whoops, sorry. Ray Muller's registry for the coordinated database.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Just take a minute liberty here to comment on the Navy. Just some activity that I've noticed is they've just required all their instructors, not all, a good number of their instructors to get their national registry back. And that's a first step to supporting their corpsmen coming out of the course to get and hopefully maintain national registry, which is, we all know, is a pathway to state licensure. So that's good news. Since I wrote this report, I will comment that Alabama had a pause in their transmission of licensure information. Once we notified them, they got it back up. So they are reporting again. Also, Indiana has 273 licenses in the testing environment now in the QA, which wasn't there when I wrote the report. Delaware is, they just reached out to us yesterday. They're still doing some QA testing. And South Dakota just registered their production credentials. So hopefully they will get back into to include their ALS along with the BLS that have been in there for a while now. Tennessee, although they have over 20,000 licenses, they did pause their transmission. They had one functionality that wasn't working the way they liked it. So hopefully that'll be fixed here shortly. They haven't transmitted since September 5th. So barring any questions, well, and we have 2 states that we hope to get something going, Pennsylvania and Oklahoma. Now that Oklahoma has a new commissioner appointed, hopefully we can get some progress going there. Barring any questions, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Schmieder.
So Ray, for the state of Texas, I noticed it says we haven't submitted any discipline actions since June 3rd. Is there, do you know what's going on with that? Because I know we've taken a lot of discipline action since then. Is there an issue at our end or at the registry end, or you can look into and just give me a call later? Something's not right there, that's for sure.
Thanks for letting me know. I would have no idea. It could be a report error. So
Okay.
Let me check on that.
I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, maybe if I could just build on that. Commissioner
Right.
Smeater, I will note you send, your office is great about sending speed memos, and we get a number of them. I would encourage all the commissioners on, both EC and non-EC commissioners, if you're on the call, please make sure you're entering discipline, leveraging speed memos. And if you need any help with that or training for your staff, if you've had staff turnover, reach out to me. I'm happy to do a training with you. But as a reminder, if you take any discipline action on an individual, there is a manual process to upload the case file information and the details. And I'm happy to help you do that.
Thank you for that addition. Any further questions of Ray or Donnie on the NIMSCA database or comments? Thank you. We appreciate the partnership on that. Now moving on to new business, Donnie.
And the good news is we've handled the new business as we were walking through. So I think just to summarize, we've got the draft letter. I will get with the chair offline and we'll work on some revisions and circulate that to the executive committee. And then we have the Q4 commission meeting. Everything's been properly public noticed. We have our rulemaking that's public noticed. We have one comment, so that's out there. We do have elections. We've had 3 self-nominations received, 2 for vice chair, 1 for secretary. That form is still up. And so at the request of Commissioner Smeater for that committee, please make sure you fill out that if you're interested in any of those positions. And other than that, sir, I believe the new business items have been properly addressed.
Thank you. Any questions on that? And I would just also echo, yes, if you have an interest, this is an opportunity on elections, you can submit, and then we will be holding those during our November full commission meeting. Looks like November 5th. So we will have executive committee will meet just before, is that right, Donnie, if I'm remembering? So we will have executive committee, see if we have any last minute issues, things of that nature. Partner organizations, my people list here. Any partner organizations, you can use the raise hand if you would like to specifically give us an update. We always welcome updates if you have any you'd like to give. I see a few on here. If you don't give an update, thank you for monitoring. We do appreciate you being on here. Okay, so I'm looking over and again, a lot of the commissioners on besides the exec committee, and then have members of the public. We have partner organizations, government organizations. Thank you all for being on here. We do appreciate it. The commission strives to be this unified certifications voice, and it is positive to have this kind of networking. With that, we'll go ahead and close out the meeting with our next executive committee and regular commission meeting on November 5th. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved, Commissioner Denny. We'll consider ourselves adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I'll see ya.